I'm now, item number three on the agenda is a presentation from the People's Action for Clean Energy. I believe the presenter will be, sorry, I forget who it was.
I can
Uh,
jump in, Mark Scully.
yeah, Mark, sorry, I apologize. I was trying to find you in the
Nope, it's
list.
all good. Well, thank you very much. I'm joined by my name is Mark Scully. I'm president of People's Action for Clean Energy, or PACE. I'm joined by Patrice Gillespie, our outreach coordinator, and Bernie Pelletier, vice president. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you all. We have had several conversations with individual COGs on a range of topics, but we are really happy to have this opportunity to share a little bit of what we do with individual towns and explore whether there's things we could do maybe more efficiently and with greater impact at the COG level. I'll share my screen, and what I'd like to do is give you a little introduction to a a tool that we've developed called the Clean Energy Action Center. I know you have several items on the agenda still, so we won't go into a lot of detail on that, but I'd like to give you sort of a flyover on that. And then I really would like to just explore, give you a sense of what we do with individual towns and explore ways that we might be able to work together. And finally, a very specific piece of information I'd like to give you about an event and an activity that we are planning on municipal EV readiness. So I'd like to start with this thing that we call the Clean Energy Action Center, or the CEAC. And it's something that PACE has literally been working on for about 10 years. And it's essentially an energy dashboard. And of course, to have an energy dashboard, you need energy data. So we've really been spending years and years gathering data, starting sort of town by town. And one of the key sources of data that you are all very familiar with and has been a terrific resource for us is the town grand lists of buildings and vehicles. By hook or by crook, we've gathered the grand lists essentially for the whole state. So we have a database of every building in the state, every vehicle in the state. And although the tax assessors may not know it, they're really on the front lines of addressing climate change. And this data is very rich for mining and for modeling. You know, what can we learn from it for the transition to clean energy? So having built this data over years and years, and we're constantly looking for new and better sources of data. Bernie Pelletier on this call has spent a tremendous amount of time with our data scientists working with OPM and working with the parcel data, the building data, and we're very appreciative of the sort of standardization efforts and the improvements being made to that database, because as you can imagine, knowing buildings, individual data about buildings, when it was built, how big it is, what its heating source is, can be really powerful information for facilitating this transition into clean energy. So we've gathered this data, we've built this model, we've probably worked with over 50 towns in helping them, essentially giving them, I want to make it clear, everything the PACE does, we give away to towns. We've got some grant funding where we've been historically a very volunteer-focused organization. So I think at least 50 towns we've worked with to take information coming out of this Clean Energy Action Center in our model and helping them understand where they are today on energy usage, what that will look like as they transition to clean energy, and most importantly, what are some steps you can take, some tangible actions. I mean, our name is People's Action for Clean Energy. This is the Clean Energy Action Center. So it's not just about data, it's about helping towns take action. So I'll give you a glimpse of, I've got 4 slides here, but again, I know you have a full agenda. I'm not going to spend too long, but this is a glimpse of information that is visible in our Clean Energy Action Center. So if we're working with towns and talking about how do you reduce your greenhouse gas emissions, how do you meet some of your own clean energy targets, a good starting point is where are those emissions coming from today? So this comes directly out of the model. And I want to make it clear, when we model a town or the whole state, we're counting everything in the town. So it's the residents, it's the businesses, it's the municipality itself, it's heating and cooling, it's transportation, it's electric loads. So here you can see for an illustrative town I've called Your Town. we can see the relative sources of the greenhouse gas emissions. So it kind of gives us an idea, well, where should we focus our efforts to reducing those? And this chart really shows this transition from where we are today. In this town, our estimate is that you produce 160,000 tons of greenhouse gases. How do we reduce those? How do we get those to zero? And essentially, we have four levers. The first two relate to buildings, and they typically come together, right? Investments in energy efficiency and electrifying heating and cooling to heat pumps, you can see will over time reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by these top two slices. A big source of greenhouse gas emissions is vehicles, transportation. It's the gasoline that we burn in our cars. By transitioning to electric vehicles, you can see that will have a significant reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. Interestingly, the combination of those three steps gets us about halfway. And of course, the reason is that we may be using EVs, we may be using heat pumps, but we're still using energy from a dirty grid. So the last step that really gets us to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions down to zero is sourcing our electricity from clean sources, right? Some of that's local, it's solar, it's local solar, it's local storage, thermal energy networks. A lot of that, of course, is regional, and as we know, the state has targets to get to a clean grid by 2040. So those are the levers that we have to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. There's a lot going on in this chart. It's a somewhat busy chart, but what this is a trajectory over time of where are we going to get our energy from. And you can see we're starting on the left here with primarily fossil fuels, right? Starting from the top, we've got oil that we burn in our homes. We've got natural gas that we use to heat. A big slice is the gasoline in our cars, right? And then below that, we essentially have the electricity that we're getting from the grid. And that's a lot of that is from non-renewables, from fossil fuels right now. It's a lot of natural gas, some oil, and then some nuclear. And then at the very bottom today, we have some renewable sources. And this chart shows the trajectory over time. And a couple things are immediately apparent. One is that as we transition away from fossil fuels to clean energy, we're going to use less energy, right? We're starting way up here and we're ending up about half as much. And that simply is because electric vehicles and heat pumps are more efficient with energy, right? An electric vehicle, putting emissions aside, an electric vehicle, about 85% of the energy in the battery gets to the wheels, whereas for an internal combustion engine car, those numbers are more like 35%. And similarly for heat pumps. So we're going to use a lot less energy in this clean energy world. The yellow dotted line shows how much of that is electricity. And interestingly, while we will use a lot less energy, we're going to use a lot more electricity, right? So, and you can see from the bottom, starting from the bottom here, we've got as we phase out fossil fuels and ramp up renewables, some of that will be local and some of that will be coming from the grid. Again, we could spend a long time going into this, but I won't drag you too far down this rabbit hole. But a very important conclusion coming out of our model is really came from us asking the question, great, if we do this, if we take this seriously, if we transition to electric vehicles and to heat pumps and get our energy from clean sources, will it cost more or less? And you can see in this example, in this town, they're spending about $90 million today on energy. Over time, at I think 2.5–3% inflation, that 91 will be over $180 million, right? And that's going to be coming from out of state. It's going to be somewhat volatile due to geopolitical influences. Whereas if we start to transition, and if we look at the green line is if we actually make these investments in electric vehicles, in heat pumps, in storage, in a clean, equitable grid, we will spend some more in the early years, right? Where this line is above the red line. But over time, as we stop extracting and burning all of our fuel sources, we get on this downward sloping cost curve. So in this case, over time, we would actually save for this town um, $1.2 billion over 2050, or 33% of our energy costs. And if we actually financed it, if we bonded it, that's the blue line. We can actually do that on a cash neutral, cash flow neutral basis. So again, we could spend a long time on what the Clean Energy Action Center does, but these are sort of the highlights, and I'll show you really quickly what the Clean Energy Action Center looks like. From our website, if you click on this thing called Make My Town Energy Cleaner, or CEAC, and you can select your town. I'll select my town of Simsbury, and I might say I like to compare myself to Avon and maybe Granby and Farmington. Then I can scroll down and now start to see some information about my town of Simsbury. How much energy, how much we spend on energy today, or about $4,000 per person. How that compares to other towns, right? What are our greenhouse gas emissions? And I want to just pause on this topic of greenhouse gas emissions, because some of you are probably familiar and have done some work with more robust greenhouse gas inventory tools like ICLEI or others. This is not a full compliant type of an inventory model like ICLEI, but it's a fairly robust estimate of the energy related greenhouse gas emissions. And again, this is available to any town. So for towns that have already done ICLEI, this may be an interesting comparison, but for a lot of towns who really don't have that, this is a pretty good starting point for what are the sources of your greenhouse gas emissions, right? Again, we've got some charts here that show the source of our greenhouse gas emissions today. And then let's look at our progress to date. How much solar do we have? We've got a history of our solar progress. Again, we can in Simsbury it's 4% of our usage, and we can compare ourselves to other towns. We can track our progress on heat pumps. We can track our progress on electric vehicles. And then similar to the charts I just showed you, over time, as we phase out fossil fuels and phase up renewables, we're going to actually be using a lot less energy. And here's a breakdown of what those renewable energy sources will be as we build them up. And here's a breakdown of the fossil fuels. And then finally, the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, and then this cost curve. So anyway, this is all available online in our Clean Energy Action Center. You can download about a 5-page report. So we find it's a great tool for towns to kind of get a basic understanding of their energy usage today. And again, PACE has been doing this now with individual towns, and we would welcome the opportunity to perhaps explore ways we could do this, working together with the COGs, providing some of this information to your towns, helping towns do things like develop climate action plans, running or organizing campaigns to take tangible action to get more residents, more businesses aware of and availing themselves of the programs for energy efficiency, for heat pumps, solar, clean transportation. Our model has a rudimentary solar siting analysis, a sort of a back of the envelope calculation, how much solar we think you could fit in town. PACE has done some interesting work. It's available on our website, of quantifying the potential for solar on solar canopies, right? And using land that's already developed, preserving farmland and forest, reducing urban heat island effect. So we've got some interesting insights there that we've worked with a handful of towns. But again, we would love to have more impact with that. We've got some people on our team who are got a lot of expertise on thermal energy networks and on microgrids. And again, those are interesting topics with potentially very high impact to explore with towns. And again, our model is, we've built it by hook or by crook, by public data. We work with towns. We'd love to work with towns to crowdsource the model further, to improve the data, to find out where where we don't have good data on what's in the municipality and things like that. So here's a link here you can get to the Clean Energy Action Center. I've showed you a little bit about the data that's in the model. I'm going to quickly pop back to the Clean Energy Action Center, And again, it's great information. It's helpful, we hope, but it's just data, and that's not the point. The point is, let's take action, right? So if in your town you don't know who your local clean energy or sustainability team is, you can click here. Otherwise, we send you right to a tool where you can at least get started identifying some actions that you can take, and you can click and learn more about each of these. But to get started, to put together a rudimentary plan to make progress towards transitioning to clean energy, you can tick these off. You can save your plan, come back and look at it later. So it's a somewhat rudimentary tool, but again, to drive people not just to know a little more about energy, but to take action. Um, so I'd love to spend open this up for some discussion at the end about ways that we might work together. But I want to mention a very specific opportunity that is coming up. One of the issues, as we work with towns, one of the issues that we find is a real need out there is how does a town prepare for this transition to electric vehicles, right? We know it's happening. We see, the cars coming out, maybe some bumps in the road with some of the losses of the tax credits and funding, but it's sort of unstoppable. And we find as we're talking with towns, there are real questions. What can a town do? What must a town do? What changes should we be making to our zoning and planning documents? How do we transition our own fleet? And particularly, what are other towns doing? How do we engage with the utility? Where is the grid capable of handling a lot of additional charging infrastructure? Where is it not? What are other ways we can engage with the utilities on their programs? And then this question of public charging. How much public charging do we need? Where do people actually expect they're going to be charging their cars? Those are real questions. And so we had set about developing a series of actions that can help towns. And we stumbled across this program called Charging Smart. And in our estimation, it is a terrific program. It's got a great set of resources for towns to jump right in and take some action. They're working on what they call the path to bronze. So it's like a sustainable CT. You've got a bronze, silver, and gold certification. And we're planning an event October 16th. It's going to be an interactive workshop. It'll be at the Hotel Marcel in New Haven. We'll have an EV show where towns can bring some of the municipal vehicles, the police cruisers, the refuse truck, maybe electric school bus, to see sort of what towns are doing and actually transitioning their fleet. But the idea is, if you come to this workshop, we're going to give you some pre-reading materials. We're going to give you some information like some of the things I just showed you out of our model. And at the event, you'll actually have an opportunity to take some steps that will gain you some actions. And we're going to follow it up with some webinars. But the idea is this event plus some follow-up activities gives a town an opportunity to get to bronze certification by summer of 2027. And finally, I just want to mention that the Charging Smart program has something called the Regional Organizational Pathway, where something like a COG could get a designation as well by assisting their member communities in getting certified, getting designated in the Charging Smart program. So happy to really open it up for discussion at this point. I think the slides, by the way, I've sent to Matt, so if you don't have them already, you will have them soon. But again, the simple message is we've been doing a lot of this work with towns individually. We'd welcome the opportunity to have even greater impact by working together with you all.
And,
Thanks, Mark.
Sam, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I'm wondering what does the model have for does the model take into consideration the rise of data centers? And they seem to be, if anything, prolonging the life of fossil fuel power plants. And then also we have the twin problem of drought and fires up in Canada, reducing Hydro-Quebec's ability to provide us electricity. Those seem like two major threats to electrification. So I'm just wondering what insights you might have on both of those things.
So yeah, great questions. I think the short answer on the data centers is we have not built that into the model yet. We're like everyone sort of trying to quantify what is the impact going to be for Connecticut towns on this, and it's just a little too uncertain. I mean, what our model sort of demonstrates is that yes, this transition to clean energy is possible. It's actually it'll be a more stable, it'll be a lower cost world. I think the dust has to settle on how, who's going to be paying for our data centers going to be bringing their own energy. What's the impact going to be? But the hypothesis that we continue to hold is that the most efficient, the least cost way of providing the power that we're going to need for our data centers is also going to be renewables. So we've not built it into the model. We don't think it's going to fundamentally change any conclusions. But and then on the Hydro-Quebec, the model is built at the town level. So we work sort of from the ground up with the towns, and then we can add that up. And we look at for any town. Not every town is going to be providing 100% of their own electricity in the end, right? So there's a certain amount we'll get from towns, and the rest comes from the grid. And we're committed to a clean energy grid. So we haven't broken that down in terms of how much hydro. Our focus really is on solar, PV, and offshore wind. We see those as the primary sources that Connecticut is going to have for its clean energy going forward.
And this is Bernie. I just jump in with one thing. It does allow us to add some options to that conversation. So right now it's a data center versus not a data center, but we could talk about a data center plus we have 100,000 electric resistance heated homes in Connecticut. What if we were able to move them to heat pumps? How much electricity does that free up? So it could be, if we bring a data center in, what options can we take that are within our local control, including procuring clean energy from offshore or additional solar that would enable those things. So it could add to the conversation in a good way.
Thanks, Bernie. Any other questions? And I do have Mark's presentation. I'll get it out to everyone after the meeting, so everyone can have that. Anything else for Mark or Bernie? Okay, or Patrice. All right, thank you all. We appreciate you all taking the time to present to us today, and I'm sure we'll have some future conversations on this.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.